There's basically three main tranches of capital: financial, humanistic, and intellectual. The humanistic and intellectual capital largely drive the financial returns. When you invest in relationships, in family, when you invest in yourself, your skill set, your network, that's what drives financial returns. But what is so fascinating to me is this huge merry-go-round and distraction that is the current world of finance, that's sold as this problem-solving service to keep your wealth. It's a game of like, you've got to outpace inflation. And it's such a murky game that we don't even know what the real rate of inflation is. Like, they stopped creating the reports. Like, you cannot find out. It's crazy. In 2006, I think they stopped doing it or something. I tried to find it recently. If you try and find the base money supply of British pounds, you can't. It's absolutely wild. And so Bitcoin's this thing where it's like, as you've described, you can adopt it in a meaningful fashion. Yes, of course, everyone wishes they were earlier. And yes, everyone wishes they bought more. But then your life starts to change. What have been some of the biggest changes? And what are you doing today that you never expected to be involved in?
Pretty much everything I'm doing, to be honest.
Awesome.
Well, I left high school and I had no idea. I mean, this is not unique in any regard, but I had literally no idea what I was doing. I finished school. I was like, what now? Like, I had no interest in going to university. I had no job lined up. I had nothing. Like, I wasn't the dumbest kid, but I wasn't one of the top kids either. Like, school didn't work for me, if I'm being completely honest. It's not the way that they deliver the learning and the education just doesn't click with me. But, again, not unique by any means at all. Education system is very much a one size fits all, and it doesn't really fit all.
Yeah. But there's very few people, I think, that it actually fits, ironically.
Yeah, exactly. But, I kind of got forced into a mechanical engineering apprenticeship by my brother. He's like, here you go, I got you this job. He literally applied for me and got me the job in a mechanical engineering shop. And I was like, what is that? I didn't know what that no, I'm not even kidding with you, Jake. I did not know what that trade was. I got an apprenticeship in a fitter machinist operator, and I had no idea what it was. Like, you could have said, hey, you're going to be an electrician. I kind of have an idea of what that is. Like, they work with electronics and they do all that sort of stuff, like wiring, and I get that power. But plumbing, you can get an idea of what a plumber does. Like, I had no idea what a fitter machinist did. And I walked into that job the first day and I looked at the machine, like, that's a lathe. I'm like, what's a lathe? It's like one of the bread and butter machinery that you would deal with. And I had no idea what it was. So I kind of just fell into it. So what I'm doing now is a far cry from where I was 15 years ago, working in manufacturing plants. I did quite well. I progressed through the natural evolution of working as an apprentice and then going to another shop, becoming a team lead, and then going to a bigger establishment. I was working for a very, very large aluminium manufacturer, I think the third largest in the world at the time. I was doing really, really well financially from a 19-year-old perspective, but that's not a career that I was passionate about, that provided me no meaning or purpose in life. It was just a job. And again, that's probably what the majority of people find themselves in. It sort of wasn't until I took the big plunge and the big risk with nothing. Like, I started with absolutely nothing, moved to Melbourne, and started my first company, which was CoinStop, reselling hardware wallets to people around the country. And the kind of, as they say, the rest is history. I was living off a credit card with a broken leg for 3 months while I was trying to start this business. Like, living on debt because I believed and I really wanted to make this happen. I really wanted to work for myself. I understood the value proposition of Bitcoin, and the early signs of the business were like, hey, we actually found something that's quite good here. Selling hardware wallets before anyone else had done that in this country.
That was roughly 2015, Chris?
Yeah. 2016 was when we started the business.
Okay.
And that ran until 2024. So almost 9 years, 9 years that we ran that business. And that was a hell of a lot of great experience, many mistakes, but that's the kind of way I like to learn, is I want to get thrown in the deep end, figure out how to swim, and then thrive and survive based on that experience. But it's really, really different to what I was doing before. And I know many, many Bitcoiners who work in this industry now come from very different backgrounds, because they found Bitcoin and it's opened up a new part of their brain that wants to spend basically every living minute thinking and doing something with Bitcoin. that's how important I think this technology is. That I say this, I've said this many times before. I think it's the most important piece of technology of the last 100 years and perhaps the next 100 as well. And I don't say that lightly, because we've had many great technological advancements, including the internet. I think the internet has reshaped modern society like few other things have. And I think Bitcoin's actually going to give the internet a run for its money in terms of impact, which is kind of hard to fathom right now because it's early days and it's still this niche, obscure, fake internet money thing. But once people unpack it and once it starts getting more globally adopted, I think you're going to see those second and third order effects of Bitcoin, like it has happened on a personal level for me, happen on a global level for everyone. As they say, right? Fix the money, fix the world is sort of the going meme. That couldn't be truer.
I've got a few other characters in the space that I have in mind right now. Shout out to all of them that I've got to know that stumbled across it for different reasons, end up going to meetups, end up going to conferences. You started Bitcoin Alive and kindly had me go and MC the first 2 years that you did it. I'm gutted to say that I won't be able to make it this year because I'm hosting my family, but our lives have all drastically improved because of getting closer to this thing. What does it look like if everyone did the same thing? Well, you could make a pretty good guess that everyone's life would get drastically better. And it's like, wow, what if this kind of Bitcoiner ethos, characteristic, it's like a movie character, right? And you've got old school philosophy like Stoicism built right into it. You've used the word accountability. Like, this is something massive that I think one of the reasons you become a punk rocker is this sense of, well, there's no one accountable out there, so fuck them all. People say one thing and do another, and like, my life's no different. Do you know what I mean? It's that sense of nihilism that comes out of that. It's like, why would you do anything for anyone when the system's just never going to help you? So I do think that's a fascinating concept. Like, whoa, is this a snapshot of the future? Do you think it is?
Well, obviously I'm biased from my own experience.
And same, completely biased, yeah.
To your point, like, I was very, very pessimistic when I was younger. I hated everything and the world. I mean,
That'd be
I was
hard.
in a heavy metal rock band screaming about how things sucked and how bad life was, and not to give any like exaggeration here, but I was very, very pessimistic, and I think a lot of younger people who haven't found Bitcoin feel the same sort of things, just in a perhaps different modern way. But there's a lot of doom and there's a lot of sadness and a lot of suffering around the world, and it's probably been around for a very long time in some capacity. But Bitcoin's totally flipped my like thinking of life. All those things are still true, but it gives me a more optimistic lens to look at the world now, because I do think that this is the life raft that we're looking for. I think the global impact of Bitcoin is going to be something researched in the future. How did the people not know in 2020 that this was going to do what it's done in 2100? We'll look back and think it was so obvious, but it clearly isn't, right? It still is globally accepted by a few percent of people, and the subset of that is like me and you, who are like super hardcore, is even like a 1% of that. So like, we're super, super early, and it's hard to kind of fathom what that future would look like. But I am much more optimistic about the future than what I was even just 10 years ago, thanks to Bitcoin and thanks to the adoption and the experience that I've had, and what it's done for me on a personal level. I think has the ability to scale to all 8 billion people, like I mentioned earlier. People just need to find a way to plug it into their own lives.